Okay. Good evening once again, guys. Thank you so much for making it to this our webinar today. This webinar promises to do two very important things. Number one, we're going to keep it very simple and straightforward. And number two, we'll show you exact steps with which you can use to get results. So thank you once again for making it to this webinar for today. And today we are going to cover the subject, how to create an onboarding email campaign that converts. But before we begin, I would like to introduce myself. So my name is Aaron Otene Ejeme. I currently lead the growth team at Engage Messaging. Personally, I'm very, very passionate about helping business owners to create email marketing strategies, right? That is going to help them convert sign-ups into paying customers. I'm very, very passionate about helping businesses grow. And with my experience at Engage, I'm so happy that it has given me the opportunity, to work with more businesses, many business owners to help them, use the power of messaging to grow their business. Now, I keep talking about Engage. And as we move on in this call also, I'm going to use Engage to show you live examples. So before anything, let's talk about Engage. So what is Engage? What do we do at Engage? At Engage, we help businesses to do three things. Number one, we help you use your customer data to create unique customer segments. And as we move on in this session today, you will see why that is a very important thing for businesses to do. The ability to use your customer data to create unique customer segments. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we give you the ability to send personalized messages to your customers via email, SMS, push notifications, and in-app messages. Then the third thing we allow you to do at Engage is that we allow you to create and launch automated messaging workflows and sequences, like we are going to see today. So just a little bit of thing for you to know. My goal for this session is to show you the exact steps you can take to create an onboarding email campaign that will convert new signups into paying customers. I'm not a fan of too many long talks, right? I'm going to show you what works, what you can quickly set up with your marketing team. Something that will not take you a lot of time to, crack your head or try to figure it out. So we are going to cover 6 subtopics during this webinar today. Number one, we are going to do an introduction into onboarding email campaigns. Number two, we are going to learn how we can use or track the data from our customer journey and identify vital touch points on the customer journey. Number three, we are going to learn how to create unique groups or segments based on our customer data. Number four, we are now going to go into it deeply and use a system to create a high converting onboarding email sequence. And then number five, we're going to do a live case study. We're going to use a company and use the company as an example to build their onboarding email campaign. And then after that, we'll learn about how we can track and understand the results from our onboarding email campaign. And then I'll be happy to answer your question. So like I said, for now, you won't be able to see anything because I muted everybody. But just note that if you have questions as I'm moving on, any questions at all, just kindly put it up in the chat box. And then when I'm done with the session, I'll be very happy to answer your questions. So shall we begin? So first things first, let's learn about what onboarding emails, like an introduction to onboarding emails. But before anything, right, before we even start talking about building an onboarding email campaign, the question we need to ask ourselves is that you, as a business owner, have you launched your product? The reason why we have to ask this question is because when we are building an onboarding email campaign, we want to convert new signups into paying customers. So obviously, for people to sign up to use your product, yes, you must have launched your product. And like I mentioned here, every business owner is faced with a very important task right after launching your product. You must find a way to convert new signups or free trials into paying customers. Now, free trials, it depends on the kind of business model you have, whether you are running a B2B company or a B2C company. As far as you have a product set up where people have to sign up, it is necessary to build an onboarding email sequence. And another thing again, why this is a very important question to ask is that the reason why we are doing all of this is that we want to build a good relationship with our customers, right? We want to build a good relationship with them, because you can't just meet somebody for the first time and then you are just talking about yourself. You know, even for the guys in the house and the ladies in the house, you know how it was when you first met your partner before you even started a relationship. It is the same thing with building a business, right? We need to build a good relationship with our customers so that they won't have to go anywhere. The industry is becoming more and more competitive. So businesses have to build a good relationship with their customers. So let's go into it deeply. So what are onboarding emails? Now, onboarding emails are the series of emails you send after a customer or a new customer creates an account on your platform or your app, or in a circumstance where maybe you are trying to grow an email list, right? When you have a new subscriber, the first series of emails you send to that new subscriber are what we call onboarding emails. So let's take it to one more time. Onboarding emails are the series of emails that you send right after a new customer creates an account on your platform or your app or your product, or if you are trying to grow an email list. Whenever you have a new subscriber, the first series of emails that this person is going to get are what we call onboarding emails. Now, onboarding is quite a very, very used term in the tech industry. You know, product managers, when they are planning their products, they try to build an onboarding flow, onboarding process into the product. But this can also be applied into email marketing, because our goal is to build a relationship with these customers, and we have to use every channel available. Now, onboarding emails are a very crucial tool that will give you the ability to teach your customers about the value of your product, which will in turn convert them from just being free users or freemium users into paying customers. Now, the question now is, why are onboarding emails important? Like, it's quite straightforward, right? We are doing this to build a relationship with our new customers. We want to build a relationship with them. We want to offer them value and then turn them into paying customers. Build a relationship with them, offer them value, and turn them into paying customers. So keep these three things in mind. Now, the question now is, okay, if this is a very straightforward process, right? Why are business owners struggling with building onboarding email campaigns that convert? Well, there are a couple of reasons, and I mentioned two here. So the first is that for most businesses, right, they're not sure of the kind of emails they are supposed to write. Okay, yes, when a customer creates an account, you send the customer a welcome email, but what comes after? What do we do after that? What do we write? How do we craft the message? These are things that most businesses are not sure of. And in as much as sometimes, yes, in these companies, there's always a marketing team. Even for the marketing team, there's always that difficulty to start, to write the first email, write the next couple of emails. So not being sure of what to write. Then the other thing is that for some businesses, they feel overwhelmed by the idea of using their customer data to power their onboarding email strategy. What does this mean? Not every business understands how to translate or use the information from their customer data and use that to power their onboarding email campaigns. Not everybody knows how to do that. For some people, it's quite confusing. Okay, how do I track the customer data? How do I even use that? How do I use that data and understand how to use the information from there to build an onboarding email campaign? No worries. We're going to cover it during this session. So now that we've covered the touch-up of what onboarding emails are, I'll just say this once again, guys. Like I mentioned, if you have questions, please feel free to put it up in the chat box. And when I'm done with this session, we'll answer your questions one by one. So now that we've covered what onboarding emails are, remember, we mentioned that onboarding emails are the series of emails, right, that we send to new customers right after they create an account on our platform, on our app, or if we are growing an email list when we get a new subscriber. And we also mentioned that the reason why building an onboarding email campaign is very important is that number one, is going to help us build a good relationship with our customers. It will give us the opportunity to offer them value, and then which will in turn turn them into paying customers. So now that we've covered that, let's talk about how we can now track the data from track our customer data. Now, the best way to do this is to look at our customer journey. Now, what is the customer journey? This is a very used term also in the tech industry. So the customer journey is a step-by-step process, a step-by-step imaginary process that we set up, whereby the customer follows through right from when they find out about our product until when they sign up or download our app or use the product, and until when they get the value, right? The value of which brought them to the product. So the customer journey, that's what the customer journey is. So why is it important for us to identify the key touch points? So what are these touch points? Now, along the customer journey, there are specific actions that the customer takes when using your product. We call these touch points. Like I said here, before you even begin creating your onboarding email campaign, you need to first understand your customer data. And for you to be able to understand your customer data, you need to understand the customer journey. And like I mentioned earlier, along the customer journey, there are touch points. And these touch points are those specific actions that the customer takes when using your product. Please, guys, all of this is we are the reason why we are learning all of this. We need to build this up, to understand how to better build our onboarding email campaign. So still on the customer journey. So what are touch points? What examples of touch points do we have? So examples of touch points, when a customer creates an account on your platform. If you have a mobile app, when a customer downloads your app, that's a touch point. When a customer completes their profile on your products, that's a touch point. If your business model is that customers have to pay a monthly subscription fee. So when a customer pays for a subscription, when they make payment, that is a touch point. If, for example, on your platform or your product, you have maybe customers need to add product to carts. When a product is added to carts, that's a touch point. If on your product, people have to book consultations. When a customer books that consultation, that is a touch point. So every product is unique. For your products, your touch points will be very different from another person's product, but it's important for us to study our customer journey and identify these touch points, because this will give us the ability to understand our customer data. Now, let's talk about the anatomy of a customer data. Now, there are two types of customer data that you should understand when creating your onboarding email campaign. There are different types of customer data, right? But there are two important ones that you need to understand when building your onboarding email campaign. And the first is what we call customer attributes. Now, customer attributes, yes, we are getting a little bit technical now, but stay with me, guys. Now, your customer attributes are key customer information, right? Information like the customer's first name, the customer's last name, the customer's email address, the customer's phone number, the customer's age, the customer's location, the customer's gender, the customer's date of birth, etc. These are what we call customer attributes. Now, the other type of customer data you should understand is what we call customer events. Now, these customer events are those actions that the customer takes when using your product. Now, this customer event is the same thing as what we call the touch points. Remember, previously we talked about the customer touch points. The touch points are those actions along the customer journey that the customer takes with relation to your product. Those actions that happen right on your product. So take it once again. There are two types of customer data. The first is the customer attributes, which are key customer information like the customer's first name, last name, email, phone number, age, etc. Then we have what we call the customer events, which are those specific actions that the customer takes when using your product. For example, when they sign up, make a pay for a subscription, add a product to cart, etc. Now, on engage, right? Remember I told you we are going to talk about engage during this session. So Engage makes it easy for businesses to keep track of their customer data. So let me just show you a live demo of how this works. So I'll be doing that during this call. So this is my demo account on Engage, right? So on Engage, when you come to customers, you see that for this my demo account, you will see all of the customers on my demo products. Let it load. Yes. So these are all of my customer data. So let's click on this customer to understand, what we were talking about when we were talking about customer attributes and customer events. Now, if you can see here, this information here, the customer ID, the customer's email, the customer's first name, last name, phone number, the customer's device, these are what we call the customer attributes. And for any business that is using Engage, right, for you to be able to access this information, we have what we call customer integration. So we have a couple of API integrations, SDK integrations, Flutter integrations. No matter what your platform or your product is built on, you can connect your customer data to Engage. So just for you who are not technical here, just understand that for every product, when you are building a product, right, you have to build a database. Like every product in existence today, every tech product, whether it's a mobile app, whether it's Amazon, whatever product at all, as far as it is a software product, it is built on a database. You understand? Now, what Engage does is that when you are joining Engage as a business, that data, that information that is already in your database, you send the most important ones to Engage. Remember, that's why it was important for us, to look at our customer journey and identify the key touch points, because it is not all of your customer data that you need when building your onboarding email campaign. You don't need everything. You just need the key touch points, that are very important with relation to your product. So that aside, like as you can see here, this is the customer attribute for this my customer on this my demo account. Now, if I click on events, so events will now show me that, okay, this customer who is using my product, what events, have they taken? So this shows you the events that the customer has taken when using your product. So like we mentioned, the events are those actions that the customer takes, or those touch points that the customer takes along the customer journey. So moving on from this, so before we move on to the next section, I just want to touch on what we learned so far, right? Number one, we understood that for us to build our onboarding email strategy or our onboarding email campaign, we need to understand our customer data. And for us to understand our customer data, we need to study and understand our customer journey. Why? Because along the customer journey, there are touch points. Touch points are actions that the customer takes when using the product or using our product. And then we also talked about the two types of customer data, which number one is customer attributes, which are information like the customer's first name, last name, email, phone number, etc. Then we talked about the customer events, which are those actions that the customer takes when using your product. So the customer event is the same thing as the action the customer takes, which is also the same thing as the touch points that the customer takes on the customer journey when using your product. I hope this is understandable. Like I said, guys, feel free, if you have questions, put it up in the chat box, and when I'm done with the session, I'll answer. So now we are moving on to our third section. So now remember, we've covered two things. First, we understood why it is important for us to build an onboarding email campaign. We said that we are doing this to build a relationship with our customer, offer them value, and then convert them into paying customers. And we also looked at, okay, after understanding why we need to build the onboarding sequence, we need to understand our customer data. And we saw that we can do that by studying our customer journey and identify the touch points. So now let's move on to how to create unique groups or segments based on this customer data that we are already tracking. So what is customer segmentation? So customer segmentation is the process of separating your customers into groups based on their attributes and events. There are different definitions out there, right? But I'm putting this in context for you to understand, right? In context of building our onboarding sequence, customer segmentation is the process whereby we put customers into different groups based on their attributes or events. What are attributes? Remember, attributes are information like the customer's gender, age, location, email address, first name, last name, etc. And events are the actions they take when using our products, such as sign up, added product to cart, abandoned cart, etc. So why is customer segmentation important? There are two very important reasons. Number one, with proper customer segmentation, you can improve your customer service support because it gives you the ability to understand the unique challenges that your customers are dealing with, and it gives you the ability to address these issues quickly. Then it also helps you build a great relationship with your customers and helps to raise brand awareness. Because with customer segmentation, we are practically putting customers into different buckets, which gives us the ability to send them personalized messages instead of the old way when we send one-time message for everybody. But with customer segmentation, we can now send messages, emails, SMS, push notification, in-app messages, live chat messages, different messages that suit a particular group of customers, which makes it easy, right, for us to, better retain our customers. So let's go to Engage and see an example on how we can use our customer data to create a customer segment. So let's go back to Engage. So I'm going to go to segments. Remember, when we're talking about customer data, we looked at it under customers. So now we are on segments. So we are going to click on create new segment. But before we begin, let's be sure, what segments are we creating? So we want to create a segment for customers who have created an account or signed up within Q1 of 2022. So let's do that. So I'm going to call this customers who have created an account. Or let's just call this customer sign up. We can give it a description. So this segment includes customers who have created an account during Q1 2022. So if you can see here, Engage has, we have an integration with Facebook ads, which gives you the ability to add your segment. So if you are creating a segment on Engage, you can send that segment to Facebook as a custom audience. So it gives you the ability to send retargeting adverts. So let's say, for example, we are creating this segment for customers that have signed up. Let's say for these people that have signed up during Q1, we want to send them maybe specific adverts on Facebook and Instagram. We can send this data, this segment to Facebook as a custom audience and then send them retargeting adverts. But we are going to have a webinar maybe next month where we are going to look at this very, very specifically. So when we are done from here, we click on next. Now, this is where we put in the condition for this segment that we are creating. So how do we do this? We click on category. Now, if you click on category, you see that there are different options: attributes, events, messages, Stripe event, Paystack event. Now, the reason why you can see Stripe and Paystack is that we have integrations with Stripe and Paystack. That is, if you are using Stripe to accept payments on your product, all of your customer billing data can be sent to Engage, and you can create a unique segment based on that billing data. Let me just touch on it. So if I select Stripe, you see that if I say, you see the options, I can create a segment based on any of this billing data. If you use Paystack also to accept payments on your product, you can also use Engage to create unique customer segment based on your customer billing data. We'll cover this in another webinar. But let's focus on what we are trying to do right now. So we are creating this segment for customers who have signed up within Q1 of 2022. So I came here, I selected events. You can also create a segment based on attributes. Remember, we said customer segmentation is a process of separating your customers into different groups based on their attributes or events. So we can do this based on the customer attributes. We can create a segment for customers maybe that have signed up using it, like maybe are using a particular device, or maybe a particular gender or location or a particular birthday. But let's focus on our main task at hand. So I selected events, I clicked on select. Then if you see here, you see different options. These are the customer events or actions or touch points that I am already tracking on this my demo account. Now for your own products, when you sign up on Engage and you do the integration, you integrate, you send your customer data to Engage, what you will see here are going to be events that are unique, to your own products. Like I said, guys, for those who are just joining the call, thank you so much for making it. We've gone quite a while, but before I move on to another section, I'll take my time to review what we've learned so far. If you have questions as I'm moving on, please, guys, don't forget to put it up in the chat box. And when we are done with the session, I'll unmute everybody and then you can ask questions. Yeah. So we're going to select this option, signed up, operator. There are different kinds of operator, like what we use to define this condition. So I'll say has occurred. So I'm saying that this event called sign up or this action has occurred. But remember, we need to add a date filter. So if you hover your mouse over this option called additional options, you can add date filter. So we have two options. We can create this date filter within a past couple of days or between a time period. Remember, we are doing this for Q1 2022. So between 1st of January 2022 to 31st of March 2022. Now, the reason why this is very important, right, why this is very helpful and very useful is that for marketers, right, for we marketers, we can use this to run experiments. Let's say, for example, you want to maybe try a specific messaging for a group of customers, but you don't want to do it for everybody. You can create this segment on Engage, use a date filter, and then focus on a very small segment of people. That is the power of customer segmentation. So when we are done with it, we can still add more filters. We can still say, if we want to maybe still track, maybe say, okay, these customers that have signed up between 1st of January to 31st of March, we want to still keep track of, okay, yes, maybe have them made payment using Paystack. These are still options you can add when creating your customer segment on Engage. So Engage gives you the ability to drill this down as detailed as possible. But let's just stick to our task at hand. So remember, we selected events, signed up, has occurred between 1st of January 2022 to 31st of March 2022. So when we are done, we can either click on get sample data to see, okay, how many customers how many of our customers fit into this condition. Since this is my demo account, there's nobody, but that's fine. This is just a demo account. So now we are done, we click on save. And voila, our segment has been created. So let's go back to our slide. Guys, like I said, if you have questions, please feel free to ask, put it up in the chat box, and then I'll answer once the session is over. So Engage tells us that our segment has been created successfully. So let's go back to the course. Yes, so just like I showed you a live example right now, we can use Engage to create our unique customer segments. Now, before we move on, remember, we've covered 3 things so far. Number 1, we talked about why it is important for us to build an onboarding email campaign. I'm doing this so that for people who just joined the call not too long ago, you'll be able to catch up, right? Number one, we covered why is it important for us to build an onboarding email campaign. We said that we are doing this because, number one, we want to build a relationship with our customers. Number two, we want to offer them value. And number three, convert them into paying customers. Then after that, we now talked about our customer data, right? We said that for us to be able to build our onboarding email campaign, we need to be able to understand our customer data. And we learned that for us to understand our customer data, we need to study and understand the customer journey. Why? Because along the customer journey, there's what we call customer touch points. These customer touch points are those actions that the customer takes when using our product. We also learned that there are two types of customer data: customer attributes and customer events. We said customer attributes are specific information like the customer's first name, last name, phone number, location, gender, etc. Then customer events are those actions that the customer takes when using your product. So customer events is equal to touch points on the customer journey, which is equal to customer actions. I hope that makes sense. Then after that, we moved into customer segmentation, which is what we just covered. So we understood that since we are now tracking our customer data, it is important for us to be able to build unique customer segments. And we define customer segmentation as a process of separating our customers, right? Putting them into different groups or segments or buckets based on the customer attributes or the customer events. That is, we can create segments for customers based on maybe the actions they are taking when using our product, or for the attributes that are attached to their profile. And I showed you a live example using Engage on how we can create a unique customer segment. Like I said, guys, if you have questions, please put it up in the chat box. So let's move on. So now that we've covered these three things, we understand what an onboarding email is and why it's important for us to do this. We understand why it's important for us to track our customer data by studying the customer journey and the types of customer data. And then we've also understood why customer segmentation is important and how to use Engage to create this unique customer segment based on our customer data. So now let's move into the main meat of this course. So now let's learn how we can now create this, our high converting onboarding email sequence. So like every marketer out there, I believe in process. Instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, it is very important for us to study what the best in the industry have, came up with strategies that work through consistent research and experimentation. Now, when it comes to building your onboarding email campaign, I am highly recommending the dinner party strategy. Now, the dinner party strategy is going to help us build a relationship with our customers, because remember, that was the whole reason of all of this. We want to build a relationship with our customer. We want to offer them value and convert them into paying customers. So what is the dinner party strategy? Now, the dinner party strategy is an onboarding email strategy that was put together by a woman called Val Geyser. So I didn't really put a lot of information about her, but when I'm sharing the slide, I'll put a link to where you can learn more about the dinner party strategy from her. So the concept is that if you are organizing a party, right, a dinner party, sorry, if you're organizing a party, there are 6 things that are expected for you, the host, to do when you organize this party. There are 6 things. Number 1, it's expected that if people attend your party, obviously, you have to welcome them, especially if it's a home, you are hosting this party at home. You have to welcome them. Oh, Aaron, thank you for attending this my event. How are things? How is the family? How are things going? You give your guests a warm welcome. Now, after welcoming your guests, what's the next thing to do? We have to serve them appetizers. Now, this dinner party strategy, when it was first developed by Val Geyser, it was developed in the context, in the American, European context of what a dinner party would look like, because what they eat is different from what we eat. So I had to remodel this so that it's understood for everybody. So the second thing we have to do is that we have to now offer our guests appetizers. So in the African Nigerian context, what appetizers? Small chops, chin chin, garden egg, and that paste that we used to eat garden egg. These are appetizers. So remember, number one, the guests attended our party. We gave our guests a very warm welcome. Then after that, we now serve them appetizers. And after appetizers, what comes next? Number three, we serve them the main dish. What is the main dish? It depends on what you cook for your party. It can be pounded yam and egusi soup. It can be any other thing. But after serving them appetizers, we serve them the main dish. Now, after serving the main dish, what do? We serve side dishes. Now, in the African Nigerian context, what are side dishes? Side dishes can be moi moi, it can be French fries, it can be nkwobi, it can be the salad that you put by the side of the food. Now, after serving them the side, I hope I'm not making you feel hungry, guys. So after serving them the side dishes, we now serve desserts. That's the fifth step. Now, in the African Nigerian context, what are desserts? Dessert can be things like plantain chips, ice cream, kilishi, suya, etc. And then after doing all of that, when the party is over, we have to now invite these our guests that, see you, thank you for coming. I really, really appreciate it. But I'll be happy if you can come back again for another party. So now keep this in mind. Keep the dinner party strategy in mind. Number one, remember, offer your guests a warm welcome. Serve them appetizers. Serve them the main dish. Serve them side dishes. Serve them desserts, and then invite them to come back for another party. So let's break it down. So how does this now apply when we are building our onboarding emails campaign? So number one, the warm welcome translates into the welcome email, right? The welcome email, that first email that the customer is going to get right after signing up to use your product, is the first welcome, the warm welcome that we, offer to these new customers. So the welcome email is the beginning of a beautiful relationship with a customer who has just signed up. Then number two, appetizers. When we translate this to our onboarding email campaign, this translates to what we call the value email. So right after sending the customer a welcome email, we now have to send them a follow-up email that talks about, like we call it the value email. So an email that offers pure value to this new startup. So what is your product about? You understand? What's your product about? Is your product about how maybe do you have a platform that sells shoes? So how do you offer value in that email to this customer who has just signed up? That is what we cover in step two. Now, step three is the main dish. So how does this now translate to, sorry, let me hide. Yes, so how does this translate to our dinner party strategy? So the product, this is what we call the product email. So at this stage now, we send an email to the customer that focuses on selling the benefits of our product. And as a rule of thumb, right, when you are sending a product email, it is always advisable to focus on your top three benefits. Yes, most products, you have different features you are selling, but focus on the top three benefits or your top three features when sending your product email. And it's always expected, yes, that there should always be a call to action at the end of your email. Step four is what we call the extra value email. Now, this corresponds to the side dishes in our dinner party strategy. So what's the extra value email? So at this point in time, we offer more value to the customers by teaching them, what they need to know that will help them accomplish their goals. So we can teach them more about our product. Then we can teach them about how to use a specific feature or function on our product to accomplish their goal. There's this concept called jobs to be done theory. So the jobs to be done theory tells us that customers, when they sign up to use our product, they are hiring our product. They are hiring our product to accomplish or to solve a problem. So that's something we can discuss some other time, right? But the jobs to be done theory lets us understand that whatever we do, right, customers are basically hiring our product to accomplish a goal or to solve a problem. So when sending the extra value email, right, or the side dishes, we teach our customers, teach them more about how they can, use our product to accomplish their goal or to solve their problem. Now, What's the next step? After offering side dishes, we offer desserts. Now, desserts in our onboarding email campaign are what we call the bonus email. So this customer now has signed up. So let's imagine that they have signed up, after sending them a couple of emails, they are taking action, and, we send them a bonus email, to get them. This bonus email can be anything. It can be a referral campaign, it can be an affiliate campaign, or maybe extra bonus offer that you want to offer to this customer. It's still extra value. Then the sixth step is the invite back email, right? This corresponds to when our party is over, we now tell our customer that, oh, man, thanks for coming, man, but I'll really be happy if you can come back again. That's what translates to the invite back email. So at this stage now, it's imagine that, okay, the customer has taken action, right? They have maybe made payments, they have done something. We send this invite back email, right, to, get them back on board. And this depends on the kind of business model you have. So if you have, for example, maybe a free trial period, when the trial is over, the invite back email is that email that you send to the customer, to remind them to come back to use your product. For if you are running a B2C business model where maybe you are not running like a trial period, this invite back email can be that email you send to the customer after they must have taken a specific action, after receiving a couple of emails from you, to still keep this conversation from them, ask them questions, get reviews, try and understand how your service has been so far, and work on the recommendations they give to you. So like I said, guys, if you have questions, please put it up in the chat box. So we just covered these 6 steps that translate into the onboarding email campaign. When we are doing the live practical session, you'll see how this translates into when we are building our onboarding email sequence. Yes, so before we move on, I'd like to talk about the Fibonacci sequence. So why is this important? For every campaign that you are building, right, whether it is an automation email sequence, whether it is an onboarding sequence, retention sequence, etc., there's what we call an email cadence. Now, the email cadence is, okay, what is the time period in between each email that is going to be sent, within this campaign that we are launching? Now, through research, we found out that the best way, to be able to build an email cadence for whatever automation sequence that you are creating, in this case, the onboarding email sequence, it is advisable to use the Fibonacci sequence. And why is this advisable? Why is this important? Now, I'm sure all of us must have heard about the Fibonacci sequence when we were in secondary school, learning mathematics and geometry. Now, the Fibonacci sequence are a series of numbers that occur naturally, like it occurs in nature, everywhere in nature, in the human body, in the Milky Way galaxy, in the shell of a snail, in a flower. This series occurs everywhere in nature. And I don't know if you've heard something called the golden ratio. So the golden ratio is a specific measurement that is found everywhere in nature, right? So this Fibonacci sequence, it occurs naturally in nature, this series, whereby a particular number is the addition of 2 numbers before it. It goes like this: 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34 into infinity. So why is it important for us to use this? The reason is because the Fibonacci sequence is natural occurring, right? It's a natural sequence. So if we build our automation sequence along the line of what nature has built, the results are going to be very, very interesting. And number 2, is also going to give us the ability to not over-email our customers, because these are things I've noticed, right, from different companies. You might send an email to a customer today, you send them an email tomorrow, next tomorrow, 2 days from now, 3 days from now. Like, if you send too many emails within quick succession, it can make your customers to unsubscribe, right? Because nobody appreciates too many emails. But with the Fibonacci sequence, we can space these emails within a very, very interesting sequence that occurs naturally in nature, which will, number 1, give the customer the impression that we are not over-emailing them, and number 2, help our emails to convert. So like I said, how does it apply to the email? So just like we saw for our dinner party strategy, on the Fibonacci sequence, day one, we send the customer a welcome email. Day one is unique to every customer. So if I sign up today on the 30th of June, that can be my day one. If another customer signs up on the 1st of July 2022, that can be the customer's day one, right? But if the Fibonacci sequence works for everybody, every person who is signing up or everybody who is signing up to use your product, it flows along with each of them. So day one, we send a welcome email. The next day, right, after one day, we send them the value email. After 2 days, we send the product email. After 3 days, we send the extra value email, etc. Now, I know the question that might come up is that, okay, so within these days that are in between, right, what if there are specific actions, right, that we want the customer to take? Remember, we are doing this for our customers to become paying customers. So I'm very, very confident that for every email that we send out, there's always a call to action. So when we are doing the live example, you see how we can use this time in between and see how we can use that to confirm that, okay, after sending the customer this email, has the customer taken that action we wanted them to take? These are very important questions that we have to ask. So let's talk about how to write email copy that converts. So if we've understood the dinner party strategy that, okay, this is how to structure our onboarding email campaign, right? How do we now write email copy that converts? So for every copywriter, every marketer out there, we all know about the AIDA. Some people call it the AIDA. So it's an acronym for 4 important steps when you are writing copy, sales copy, whether it is for an email, whether it's for a landing page, whether it is for any kind of content at all. So the first step is what we call the attention stage. So this is all about grabbing the customer's attention. And for your email, this is done in the subject of your email. That is the attention. Because when the customer receives the email in their inbox, the subject is the first thing that they are going to see. Then the second step is what we call the I, that is the interest, right? So we grab the customer's attention with our email subject. So how do we, make them interested in what we are putting on? That's the second stage. Then the third stage is the desire stage. So yes, this is what our product does, right? And this is how it can solve your problem. And then the fourth step is the action step. So like I said a couple of minutes ago, when you are building an email, depending on the kind of email, there's always a call to action, right? What you want the customer to do right after reading the email. So keep this in mind whenever you are writing copy for the emails that you are building up in this your onboarding email campaign. So we are going to move on to our practical now. Yes, I'm so excited. So guys, just before we move on, just to touch on things we've covered so far. Like I said, if you have questions, please put it up in the chat box. I hope it's not getting too technical. Number one, we understood why it is important for us to build an onboarding email campaign, because we want to build a relationship with our customers, offer them value, and convert them into paying customers. Number two, we talked about how to understand our customer data by studying the customer journey and identifying the key customer touch points, which are those actions that the customer takes when using our product. And we looked about the 2 types of customer data: customer attributes and customer events. Customer attributes, information like the customer's first name, last name, email, etc. And customer events are those actions that the customers take. Then after that, we now looked at how to create unique customer segments based on that our customer data. And like we said, customer segmentation is the process of separating your customers based on their customer data, putting them into different groups or segments based on the customer data, either customer attributes or customer events. And then we now just covered how to build this email campaign, right? The onboarding email campaign, by using what we call the dinner party strategy, which looks at the 6 steps that we take when we organize a party. Number one, we give our guests a welcome email, our new customers a welcome email. Number two, we send them a value email. Number three, we send them a product email. Number four, we send them an extra value email. Number five, we send them a bonus email. And number 6, you send them an invite back email. Now, before we move on to the practical, I just want to touch on something. So depending on, the time it takes for a customer to convert, depending on your product, if you have a 30-day trial, this dinner party strategy works perfectly for you. But if you also understand that the dinner party strategy is not just limited to 6 emails, you can still expand it. You can send more than one value email. You can send more than one product email. You can send more than one extra value email. It can be stretched. It's just for you to understand that at every stage, right, there's an objective at every stage of the email sequence. I hope that makes sense, guys. If you have questions, please put it up in the chat box. So for us to do our practical, because of time, initially, I wanted to build an onboarding email sequence for 2 products, a B2B and a B2B company and a B2C company. But when I'm putting up together this slide deck, I'll still add extra options. But because of time, we're just going to focus on one company, right? So this company is called hostel.ng. So they are one of our customers at Engage. They are still putting together their onboarding email campaign. So we're going to use them as a case study. Now, hostel.ng allows you to find and book a hostel room in any university of your choice. But hostels.ng have 2 types of customers. Now, they have a customer who we call guests. These guests, what they do is that they rent a space on the platform on hostel.ng. Then we have another group of customers called hosts. Now, these hosts are the ones who rent out their space or their hostel space on hostel.ng. Now, what is our task for this case study? We want to create an onboarding email sequence for guests and hosts. But for the purpose of this our time, because purpose of time and example, we're just going to focus on building the automation sequence for customers who are guests, right? Who want to rent a space on hostel.ng. So we are going to cover a couple of steps. So step 1, just like we mentioned, when we're looking at all of the steps we've taken so far, all of the sections we've covered, number 1, we need to identify the key touch points for hostel.ng. So when we study the customer journey of hostel.ng, these are some of the key touch points that we identified. So for a guest, we need to keep track of, okay, this customer, have they created a new account? Remember, we are building an onboarding email sequence. So obviously, the sign up or the create new account touch point is very important. We have to keep track of that. So these are the key touch points. For a guest, we are keeping track of when the customer creates a new account, when the customer reserves a hostel room, when the customer pays for a room, and when the customer moves into the room. Then for a host, we are keeping track of when the customer creates a new account, when the customer, that is the host, lists their room on hostel.ng. We're also keeping track of when this room that was listed is reserved, right? And excuse me. And then when, I was supposed to be host, sorry. When the host receives payment. Step 2. So let's do this live. So number 1, we've noted that these are the key touch points that we are tracking for this onboarding sequence we are building for hostel.ng. So let's create unique customer segment. Let's create 2 segments. Let's create a segment for people who have signed up as a guest and for people who have reserved a hostel room, and maybe for people who have made payments. So let's do that. So let's go to Engage. Sorry. Okay, so let's go to Engage. I'm trying to move the video panel. Okay, so this was the first one we created earlier, but let's delete it and do something new. So I'm going to delete this. Okay, so let's create the first segment, which is customers who have created an account as a guest. So let's call this customer sign up as guests. So give this a description. This segment includes customers who have created an account as a host. I can add this segment to my Facebook ad account. Like I said earlier, Engage, we have integrations with Facebook ads whereby you can send customers who are in a particular segment to Facebook as a custom audience and then show them retargeting adverts, but that it's optional. So let's click on next. So let's add the conditions for this our segment. So I'm going to click on category. I'll go to event, click on select, sign up, operator has occurred. I can still add, I can add like a property filter and say, I can say, so if you hover over here, there are three options. We have property filters, frequency filters, and date filters. So I can say, okay, I'm doing this, this account matches guests, right? Yes. So we're not limiting, we're not doing this for a specific time period. We just want to, Hostel.ng is a new customer. They're just launching their product. So we want to track everybody from beginning. So when we are done, we click on save. So we've created our first segment. So let's create the second segment, which is the segment for customers that have reserved room, like the guests who have reserved room. So we'll call this reserved room. This segment includes customers who have reserved a room. Click on next. Then we put in our conditions. So because for this my demo account, I don't have an event called reserved room. So we're going to use something to replace that. I'm going to use, let me use, okay, I'm going to use this to represent that product added. So please just note, guys, the reason why we're using this is because this is our demo account. This is not hostel.ng's Engage account. So we cannot find that particular event called reserved room. So I'll say has occurred. Yes, so when we are done, we click on save. So as you can see, we've created two segments. First segment was for customers that have signed up as guests. The second one was for customers that have reserved the room. You can create unlimited segments on Engage, but because of time, let's move on. So we've identified our key customer touch points. We've created our unique customer segment. So what's the next step? So step 3 is that we need to visualize our onboarding email campaign. You know, before even going to Engage to create your automation sequence, it's always advisable, you know, to visualize this using a flow chart, because that is going to guide us step by step when creating our onboarding email campaign. So for this example, I did that already. So I built this flow chart to show you the steps we are going to take when creating our onboarding email sequence. So we can check this as yes. So what's the next step after that? So the next step after that is that we need to write the content for our email. So I'm going to imagine that, you know, before even setting up your onboarding sequence, it's advisable to write your emails. So since it's just a demo course, I'm just going to put a couple of dummy texts just to represent the emails that we are sending. And then step 5, we can create our automation sequence. So let's do that. Since we have, number 1, created a segment, we have created our flow charts. So I think we can now confidently create our onboarding email flow for the guests at hostel.ng. So let's do this, guys. So first things first, we'll go to automations. Now on Engage, you see there are 2 options. You can create a new automation or you can use templates. So we have a couple of templates that we are going to be updating from time to time, where you can just go and just pick it up and use that to create your automation sequence. But for the purpose of this example, we are going to create this from scratch. So we're going to click on create new automation. Then let's give this our automation sequence a name. Remember, we are building the onboarding email campaign for customers who have signed up as a guest on hostel.ng. So I'm going to call this onboarding sequence for guests. So let's give this a description. This onboarding sequence was created to nurture new signups and convert them into paying customers. So a couple of things I want you to note here. We have an option called run only once per customer. So if we select this option, when our automation sequence goes live, Engage is going to run by only one customer. Like you cannot, if I've already signed up before using a particular email, if I try to sign up, obviously you cannot sign up again using the same email, so it cannot work. So this automation sequence runs only once per customer. You cannot receive more than one welcome email. That's what this means. So Engage also gives us the ability to set a goal for our automation sequence. So for this onboarding sequence that we are creating, our goal is that, yes, we want to convert these customers into paying, want to convert these new signups into paying customers. But for hosted.ng, there are specific steps, right, that leads on to when the customer makes payments. Remember, we created a segment for customers that signed up. We created a segment for customers that had reserved a room. And then remember, and that touch point was for customers that have made payments. So for this particular sequence that we are building, our goal is that we want them to reserve a room, and then we are going to build another sequence that follows up the people who have reserved a room and take them to the next step. So the reason why we are doing this is that when building an onboarding sequence or any automation sequence at all, it is important, right, to keep track along as the customer is receiving specific messages from us or along the automation sequence. We need to check at this particular point that we send this customer an email or an SMS or a push notification. Did they take that action that we wanted them to take? Did they click on the call to action and actually took that action? These are questions we need to answer. So when we notice that, okay, along the line, along the automation sequence, a particular action has been taken, it's for better track of your customer, of the results from your automation sequence, or to better track your conversion. It is good to break this down into different chunks. I'll explain why as we move on, but let's set the goal. So our goal is that, remember, we use this to represent reserved room. So I can say this has occurred, and yes, done. So that's the goal. So the goal is that, so remember, we're using product added to represent reserved room because this is a demo account. I hope that's understood. So another thing we can also do is that we can set an exit condition, but since we've set this goal, I'm going to select this so once the goal has been met, this the customer who is on this automation sequence that we are creating should exit the automation sequence. So guys, I hope it's not getting too technical, but let's move on. So now that we've done that, we can begin. So let's look at our flowchart again. What's the first step? We have to create a trigger that covers customers who have joined the segment called sign up. So let's go back here. We click on start here, then select the trigger. Click on this drop-down menu and go to customer joins segment. And remember that segment we created earlier, as you can see. Then there's an option here called back populate. So back populate is an option where you select that in circumstances where you have customers who have already taken this action before you created this automation sequence. Because once this automation sequence goes live, it only picks customers who signed up right after the automation sequence was created. But in most cases, we still want to cover people who have signed up before we created the automation sequence. That's why we have this option called back populate. So when we are done, we click on save. So what's the next step? We want to delay this automation sequence for 10 minutes before sending the customer a welcome email. So let's do that. So we click on this plus button. We go to control, select this drop-down menu and select delay. Delay for what? 10 minutes. 10 minutes. So select this drop-down menu, 10 minutes and save. Then what do we need to do? Send welcome email. So let's send our welcome email. So remember, click on this plus button, come to action and select send email. So let's just give this a title. Let's call this welcome email. So you click on update content to put in the content, your email copy. And remember, like I told you earlier, using the ADA formula, we can build email copy that converts. So I put in my name, Aaron from Hostel NG. I put in my email, aaron@hostel.ng. Engage allows us to track clicks and track, enable people to unsubscribe. If you notice here, you see that there are 3 types of email editors on Engage. We have what we call the plain text editor. The plain text editor is your everyday, what you see is what you get editor. Like you use that to send emails that go direct into the customer's inbox as plain email. Then we have what we call the simple editor. So the simple editor takes email customization a step further, with which we can use this, to add buttons to our email, especially when we are adding a call to action. We can add logo, we can change the body of the email, change the background, change the footer, and do more customization that we wouldn't normally do with the simple, with the plain text editor. Then we have what we call the custom HTML editor. So we use this when we have built a custom HTML email, right? We just put this in there and represent it. But because of time, let's just focus on this. So let's just put in a dummy email. Thank you for joining Hostel.ng. To get more value, click here. So we can add this as a call to action. Okay, so when we are done with the content, we click on update content, we click on save. So what's the next step? The next step is that, remember, we now begin our Fibonacci sequence. So delay for 1 day, and then after that, send the value email. So let's do that. So we're going to delay this automation sequence for 1 day. Remember, we started our Fibonacci sequence. So excuse me. Okay, so we delay this for 1 day. Let me zoom out a little bit. So after that, we send our value email. So let's send value email. Action, send email, value email, update content, put in my email, my name, put in my email address, then put in the content, first name. This is a value email to reserve a room on hostel.ng. Click here. So we are putting a call to action in this, our value email, and you understand why we are doing this. Remember, this sequence we are building, we set up a goal from the very beginning that we want to be sure that as we are sending these customers this email, right, we want them to reserve a room, because when they reserve a room, obviously they are going to make payment, because you cannot reserve a room you're not ready to pay for, right? So this is a call to action we are adding here. So I'll click on update content, save. Then what's the next step on our flowchart? So on our flowchart tells us that when we get to this point, we have to check. At this point, has the customer reserved a room or a space? If no, what do we do? If yes, what do we do? So if yes, we have to, the customer has to exit this automation sequence, because like I mentioned earlier, for hosted.ng is going to build another email sequence for customers that have reserved a room, where they send them messages to, get them to make payment and other things. So let's check that. So to make that happen, we click on this option, then we go to control, and then select what we call the if or else control. Go to category, go to event. Remember, we are using product added to represent reserved a room. Operator has occurred, then we update. So let me scroll up. You see now, we are here now. So after receiving the first welcome email, we waited for 1 day, then we sent the customer the value email. Then at this point now, we are now checking. So after the customer got this value email, did the customer reserve a room? If yes, what do we do? Remember, from our flowchart, this automation sequence is going to automatically exit. If no, what do we do? If no, we have to continue our Fibonacci sequence. We now delay this onboarding sequence for 2 days. Let's do this quickly because time is going. So we add the control, we delay for 2 days. Let's do this quickly, 2 days. Then what do? We send the product email, action, send email, product email, content, put in my name, put in my email, to my content. Excuse me. This is our product email that covers our top 3 benefits. To get started, to reserve a room, click here. Excuse me, guys. So I click on update content. So at this point, what do we do? Looking at our flow chart, we check again. Has the customer reserved the space? So we go back to control, if or else control, then we check again. Okay, after receiving this email, did the customer reserve a room? If yes, exit. If no, what do we do? If no, we delay for 3 days. Our Fibonacci sequence continues. So guys, because of time, I don't think I'll finish up this sequence because of time. Delay for 3 days. Then the last email was the product, so we'll send the extra value email. Let's do that quickly. Extra value email, update content. Okay, it's in my email. My content, quickly. This is the extra value email to reserve a room. Click here. So if you notice, in this sequence we are building, we have like a recurring call to action, right? We want them to reserve a room. That's like a recurring call to action. So click on save. So as you can see, guys, we are going on at this stage, just like we did earlier, we check again. As the customer reserved the room, we go to if or else. category, event, product added has occurred. Remember, guys, we're using this product added to represent the action called reserve a room because this demo account does not have that particular event. So I click on update. Yes, exit, no. We delay, we put in, continue our Fibonacci sequence. We delay for 5 days. Let's look at our charts. So yes, delay, good. Delay for 5 days, send bonus email. Bonus email. Update content. In my name. Okay, let's put in content very quickly. Okay, so at this point, guys, I think we can, so you understand the concept, right? I'll just stop the automation sequence here right now. So like I said, it is important for you to be able to visualize the automation sequence you're about to create. And using flowcharts, it gives us the ability to do this. Because as for we marketers, we can discuss, show this to our team so that they understand our thought process. And it makes it easy for you to look at it holistically, before actually going to engage and then creating this automation sequence. So let's just walk through the steps. So remember, step one, we created the trigger. And the trigger was that for customers who joined this segment called signed up as guests, then after that, we wait for 10 minutes before sending the customer a welcome email. Then after that, we wait for 1 day. Remember our Fibonacci sequence, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21 to infinity. So wait for 1 day. After that, we send the customer a value email. Now in this value email, there was a call to action, right? That is going to tell the customer to click on a link to go and reserve a room on the product on hostel.ng. So at this point, we now ask ourselves, did the customer actually reserve a room? If yes, exit this automation sequence, no problem. We are going to create a separate one for customers that have reserved a room, because remember, we created a segment for customers who have reserved a room. So if you reserve a room, automatically you'll be in that segment we created earlier, and then we can create another sequence for these guys that have reserved a room. So the reason why we are doing that is it's good to break it down so that we can better keep track of the conversions. So for this one now, we are tracking reserve room. Then when we are doing the automation sequence for people that have reserved the room, we are tracking, okay, these people that have reserved the room, have they made payments? Because in some cases, the customer might not make payments immediately, or some might make immediately. I hope that makes sense, guys. Then we wait for 2 days, send the product email, check again. If yes, exit the automation sequence. If no, wait for 3 days, send our extra value email, check again, and so on and so forth, guys. Yes, so when we are done with this, so let's imagine that we are done with this automation sequence. We then click on Go Live. So when you click on Go Live, Engage publishes your automation sequence, and then we can now study the results. So which takes us to the final part of our webinar session for today, which is understanding the results from our automation sequence. Take this down here. Okay, so on your automation sequence, there are specific things you can keep track of. So I'm going to show you on that campaign we just created. So there are 2 things to look out for. Number 1, on your onboarding email campaign, on your sequence that you have created, you can keep track of the data from each stage of the automation sequence. And then you can also keep track of the holistic view, the holistic results from the automation sequence. So let's go to engage and look at that. So if you come here, you see that this automation sequence that we created, at each stage, we can keep track of what is happening at each stage of the sequence. If you look closely here, let me zoom in a bit and I hope you guys can see it. So if you notice here, for this stage here, it tells you how many percent of people have, entered this, like has that this trigger has covered. How many percent of people? How many of them have waited for 10 minutes? How many of them got an email? How many of them opened the email? How many emails bounced? You can keep track of this at each stage of the automation sequence. So that's one thing you can keep track of. Then the other thing is, if you notice here, there are specific metrics. You can see how many of these emails were delivered, how many were opened, how many people clicked on those call to actions that we put up in our emails, then how many failed. So that's what you can keep track of at the individual stage of the automation sequence. Then we can now also study the holistic view. So the holistic view looks at the automation sequence as a whole. So out of like this from the trigger, right? How many people entered this onboarding email sequence? Out of these people, how many of them have hit the goal, right? This goal is what we define as our conversion rate, right? So how many people, remember for this one we're building, you want them to reserve a room. So how many out of these people that have entered this automation sequence, how many of them have reserved a room? How many of them unsubscribe? And how many of them have exited from the automation sequence? Remember, when we're building this automation sequence, we used the if or else control to check that, okay, when we check at a particular stage, if the customer has reserved the room, let them exit the automation sequence. So for every of them that exit the automation sequence, you will see this data here. You will see this information here that shows you how many of them have exited the automation sequence. Engage also allows you to keep track of what we call events. So your automation sequence also has events where you can keep track of which particular customer or how many times a particular customer opened their email, which particular customer click on a particular link, etc. So the question now is, how can this help us, to improve our onboarding email sequence? How can this help us prepare for the future? So these results, right, for a marketing team, if your goal, right, is to convert these new signups into paying customers. So when we build our onboarding sequence, this is where we now keep track of our results. So remember, we set a goal for every automation sequence we are building. We set a goal, right? So this gives us the ability to calculate that, okay, this sequence that we created, this is how many percent of them have hit the goal for that automation sequence that we created. And looking into the future also, when you write emails, like when you write your email content and you test over a period of time, the question also comes up, how can we make our emails better? How can we, are there things we can do, to write better copy? Well, the answer is yes. So if you have set up an onboarding sequence and it has gone live, you can duplicate this particular sequence that you have created and then make changes to the content and test this for another segment. Like I showed you earlier also when we're creating segments, I showed you that on Engage, you can create a segment based on time filters, like date filters. You can do it for a particular segment. So we can use this to run experiments. So let's say we run an experiment where we compare our onboarding email sequence for Q1 with Q2 or Q2 with Q3 and so on and so forth. So let's just go through a little bit of the things that we've covered so far, guys. Remember, number one, we talked about why it is important for us to build an onboarding email campaign. And we said that the reason why we are doing this is because, number one, we want to build a relationship with our customers. Number two, we want to offer them value. And number three, we want to convert them into paying customers. Then we now talked about our customer data. And we said that for us to understand our customer data better, we need to study the customer journey. And when we started studying the customer journey, we noticed that there are touch points along the customer journey. We also talked about the fact that there are two types of customer data that is important for us when we are building this our onboarding sequence: customer attributes and customer events. Customer attributes are information like the customer's first name, last name, email, phone number, etc. and then the customer events, which are those actions that the customer takes when using the product. And like I said, customer events is equal to customer actions, which is also equal to customer touch points on the customer journey. Then after that, we now talked about how to build or create unique customer segments. We define customer segmentation as a process of separating customers based on their customer data by separating them into different groups based on either their customer, their attributes or their events. And I showed you an example on how to do this using Engage. Then after talking about creating our segment, we now went deeply into the process, the strategy we can use to build our onboarding sequence. That's where we now talked about the dinner party strategy. And like I said, the dinner party strategy was built by Val Geyser. When I'm sending you guys the link to this slide and the recorded call, I'll still add links so that you can have access to the main and see when she first came out with the concept. So the concept behind the dinner party strategy, we covered the 6 steps that for whatever party you're organizing, right, you have to do 6 things. Number 1, you have to give a warm welcome to your guests. Number 2, you have to offer them appetizers. Number 3, you have to offer them the main dish. Number 4, you have to offer them side dishes. Number 5, you have to offer them desserts. And number 6, invite them to come again to attend your party. And when we now translated that into our onboarding email campaign, we said that the first step, the warm welcome, translates to the welcome email that we send to customers when they sign up on our product. Number 2, we send them a value email, right? Number 3, we send them the product email. The product email translates directly to the main meal or the main dish in the dinner party strategy. Then the value email, which is the second email you send after the welcome email, translates to the appetizers that we offer to these people that attend our party. Then after the product email, we talked about the extra value email, which translates to the side dishes on our dinner party strategy. Then we talked about the bonus email, which translates to the desserts that we offer to these customers when they offer to our guests when they attend our party. And then the invite back email is that email we send to customers, to get them back to use our product. Then I showed you a live example using hostel.ng, where you saw how we tracked the key touch points on the customer journey of hostel.ng. We saw that there are 2 types of customers. We have people who are signing up as guests on hostel.ng and people who are signing up as hosts. But because of time, we only focused on the onboarding sequence for the guests. But when I'm sending you the slide, I'm going to add that for the host also. So we keep track of our customer data, the key touch points on the customer journey. We then created 2 customer segments. That's for customers that sign up as guests and customers that reserve a room. Then we now visualized our automation sequence using the flow charts, right, to guide us when creating our automation sequence. And after doing that, after building our automation sequence, we made it go live and we saw how we can learn from the results. So guys, this brings us to an end of our session for today. I know we've taken quite some time, but I'm really, really happy that you stuck with me right from the very beginning. So I have a very special offer for everybody on the call today. So if you join Engage, we do 2 things for you. Number 1, we have a free forever plan that covers 1,000 active customers. So if you want to give Engage a try, no problem. Sign up free of charge and you have access to 1,000 customers free of charge. But when you decide to upgrade, we are going to offer you 30% off your first 3 months. 30% off your first 3 months. So if you're interested, you can take that offer. So you can always contact me via email. I'm on Twitter and I'm also active on LinkedIn. So I think it's time for us to answer questions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and then unmute everybody to ask questions. Yeah. So let me do that. So let me check the chat box. We had someone asked a question. Okay, so guys, I think you can ask a question now. So does anybody want to go first? You can unmute yourself and ask your question. And thank you so much for your patience, guys. Yeah, so who wants to go first? Anybody? Okay. Okay. Nobody's asking a question. So I'm going to assume that you understood everything that we covered during the call. So I'd just like to hear from you guys. Okay. Yes, Olayinka, yes, you get a recording of the call. Yes, this call is recorded. You get a recording of the call. Yes. Yes. Okay, guys. I really hope that you got a lot of value from this webinar session that we held today. If there's anything you're going to keep in mind, just understand that when we are building an onboarding email campaign, our main goal, right, is to build a relationship with these customers. That's our goal. Because you can't just meet somebody for the first time and now start shouting, come and buy, come and buy, come and buy. No, it doesn't work that way. We need to nurture the relationship. We need to be in communication with these customers, to grow a relationship with them. So keep that in mind. We are building this onboarding sequence to build a relationship, offer value, and then convert these guys into paying customers. So thank you so much for making it, guys. I will share a recording to the event, and I'll also share the slide to the event with you guys also. So if anybody has any questions, you can ask. If not, I'll stop. Okay, yes, so we have a question. Onmo, you can unmute yourself if you want to speak. So yes, the answer is yes. So apart from email, yes, SMS works also. So like I just focused on email for this sequence that we're creating, but I've worked on other projects with other clients whereby on their onboarding process, they didn't just focus on only email. They wanted to also add other channels. So Engage, remember, we don't only support email. I just focus on email for this event. We support email, we support SMS, we support push notification, we support in-app messages. The next couple of weeks, we are adding live chats and other channels, even WhatsApp in the next couple of months also. So that is one major advantage about Engage. Like when you are building your automation sequences on Engage, you are not just limited to email. You can do a mixture of different channels. Yeah, I hope that answers your question, Momo. Yeah. Any other question, guys? Okay. Mo, you'd like to say something? Yeah. You can unmute yourself.
Okay. Okay, so what I actually want to say is if it's possible, because I understand the email works very well, and I'm just thinking about the open rate of the email, which is like a concern. So that was why I asked the question if SMS can actually go with the email sequence.
Yes.
Something like, for instance, if I don't know.
Okay, should I share my screen? Should I share my screen so that we can see how we can answer this question as you're asking? Okay, so let me do that.
Yes, please.
I'm sorry, let me log out. Okay, so I'm listening.
All right. So you made mention of something like one can actually duplicate a segment.
Yes, you
can. I'm thinking
not a segment, your automation sequence.
Okay, because I actually joined it though. So, but since you said there's going to be like a recording of the, so which I will actually love though. Okay. So beyond using email for the onboarding, can one use SMS for the onboarding? I'm just asking if that's possible.
Yes, we can. So I just clicked on edit, right? To edit this sequence that we created. So let's say after we wait for 10 minutes, right? After the customer gets the welcome email, we want to still send them an SMS just to say, okay, hey Ron, thank you for signing up. So I'll click on this, let me add this stage here. So I click on this plus button. Then you see action. I select this drop down and you see send SMS.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, so Engage, at Engage we have integrations with these 4 email gateways. We have integrations with Segment, Twilio, Hola Tax, Temi, and Africa is Talking. Yeah, so if you're using any of these guys, you can use that as a gateway. So let's say I want to use Temi, then I select my channel, I put in my sender ID, then I put in my message. Okay. First name. Thank you for signing up. So when we are done with this, we can also add a link to our SMS, and Engage can keep track of that link. So what we do is that if you add, let's say for example, I add this link, right, www.engage.so. So as far as I've enabled this option, track link, what Engage does is that when Engage is delivering this email, this SMS, it shortens the URL. It shortens the URL. And then when it shortens the URL, like, and the customer clicks on it, Engage will show you the results that, okay, so and so people clicked on the URL in your SMS. So when I'm done, I click on save. And as you can see, we now have an SMS here. So after the customer gets the email, they get an SMS, then we wait for 1 day, and then it moves on. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. So now I saw the SMS. So that means I will need to kind of connect to those hosting you said, like African Talking or something. I need to have an account with them.
Yes. So you can use either of any of them. So we are still working on our own in-house SMS service, right? But you can use any of those guys. And the one good thing is that we have a very good relationship with them. So it's more like a partnership level. So if it so happens that you're running a campaign and maybe you want to have better delivery rate, or you need us to talk to them to put you on a better route, we have done that for many clients before. So in such a circumstance, we can say, okay, tell me, Hola Tax, this is our customer, do this for them, you understand? So you can either use Hola Tax, Africa is Talking, Temi, or Twilio, any of them. But the good thing is that Temi, for the Nigerian audience, it's it works very well. Yeah.
All right. The question was actually born out of the fact that, I mean, I'm thinking about Nigerian audiences where, so that if it's possible, one can combine email and SMS together, which I think is actually cool. So
yes, you can, and just for the purpose of every other person, right? You can still add push notification. You can still say, okay, you still want to add a push notification to. So I can just say thanks for signing up. You understand? So you can still add a push notification to the mixture. That's one thing that makes Engage very special. You're not just limited to email.
Are you serious?
Yes. Thanks for signing up. Save this, and you can see we have this in here. So we send the customer a welcome email, we still send them an SMS, and we still send a push notification. So
let me get you right.
Yeah.
The push notification comes in like a notification on their phone, right?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
That's interesting.
Yes. So what I usually tell people is that, most times when I talk about Engage or I show a demo, I'm basically, in most cases, I'm just scratching the surface. The only limit is your imagination. That's why it's very important for you to build a flow chart, right? So that you can look at it holistically and identify that, okay, at this particular point, I don't want to just send an email. I want to also send an SMS. I want to send this and that. So that when you are building your automation sequence, this visualization that you have done here, you just translate it to your automation sequence on Engage.
Interesting. So if I get it very well, there's a free plan that covers, do you say 1,000?
Yes, 1,000 active customers. So at Engage, we don't charge you per message, right? We don't charge you for the messaging. We only charge you for the customer, because like I mentioned, we have different channels. So we charge you per customer. So let me just quickly show you our pricing page just to explain a few things, if that's fine with you guys. Yes, so we have a free plan, like I said, that covers 1,000 active customers, right? And then we have a starter plan. The starter plan starts from $25 per month. So for you to really understand our pricing from when you want to upgrade, just understand that for every customer, right, for each customer, Engage charges you 1 cent. That's $0.01. We charge you $0.01 per every active customer. So if you have 5,000 customers, that's $50 per month. If you have 1 million customers, multiply that by 0.01. But like I said, you can start off with a free plan, and once you're ready to upgrade, just let us know. We'll offer you 30% discount for your first 3 months.
Oh, interesting.
Yes. Yeah. Any other questions?
No, I'm cool. I mean, it's just for me to kind of just test the system and everything, which I honestly would do.
Okay, no problem, no problem. And along the line, right, if you are trying it on your own end and you face any difficulty, you can always send me an email. I and my team will be very happy to assist you. And even if your engineers are trying to do the integration, right, so as to track your customer data and they are facing any difficulties, no problem. Just let us know. We can always arrange a call with our engineers and your engineers, and they'll give you guys whatever support you need.
All right, thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the question. So any other question, guys? Okay. So thank you so much once again, guys. Thank you for attending this webinar session. I really, really appreciate your presence. Like I said, in the next couple of days, early next week, I'll share the slide and the recording of the video, because I need to still put a little bit of other content, like the other onboarding sequence for the host for hosted.ng when we're as our case study. But thank you so much, guys, and see you next time.